All right, so today I'm going to start in the tradition of a friend of mine, Ty Scott Anderson. I'm going to be reviewing An Introduction to Parapsychology by Harvey, Irwin, and Caroline Watt, 5th edition. But yeah, it's a good book. It really is. Very objective analysis of parapsychological research. First chapter is an introduction, which is original, isn't it? Calling something an introduction for us, the first chapter. Anyways, the first real thing which really digs into the stuff is chapter 2. Goes through mesmerism, spiritualism. It's called Origins of Parapsychological Research. It also talks about notable physical mediums like D.D. Hume. D.D. Hume was a medium who wasn't sufficiently debunked during his lifetime. There were a lot of claim or allegations of fraud after his life. After he died, he was a medium from around the 1850s to probably 1873 or 1874. That was when he really retired, at least from public life. That was right after the experiments that Sir William Crookes conducted with him. I know a lot about Hume, but he was born in the 1830s, 1833, and he died in 1886. Very controversial and famous medium, or supposed medium, I should say. But there were a lot of allegations of fraud. Robert Browning tried to level a lot against him in his life, but mostly there was nothing of real substance there. And Browning's accounts really contradicted themselves, and pretty much I could go through every single allegation of fraud and pretty much pick it apart. Not because Hume was genuine; he could have been a fraud, but at the same time, the allegations and I'd say the evidence for fraud in his case is very, very poor, and you wouldn't expect that for someone who had been a medium for so long. You know, every other contemporary medium in his time had been exposed. But real psychical research, real psychological research didn't really start until the founding of the SPR, Society for Psychical Research, in 1882. But yeah, chapter 2 goes through a good deal of stuff about that. If I were going to recommend any single book for someone who's interested in parapsychology, interested in learning about the science of parapsychology, I would recommend this book. A lot of people claim it's a pseudoscience, but you can argue that. I would pretty much agree with people like Chris French and say that it is a science as long as people follow the methods of science in conducting parapsychological research. Now, I would say that a lot of things are pseudoscientific, but not parapsychology, for a lot of reasons, and I can definitely argue that if anybody wants to try. Anyways, this is a very skeptical and critical, objective look at the evidence, which is good. It's not dismissive, as a lot of books are. This is very evaluative. It goes through a lot of stuff, and I guess it shows the strengths and the weaknesses of each given case. Anyways, chapter 3 is the phenomenology of extrasensory perception. Talks about some of the attributes of claimed extrasensory perception. Chapter 4 is experimental research on ESP. Talks about the debate of the authenticity of it. Experimental inquiry into it. Switching from spontaneous case research, which had been the focus of the early stuff. This talks about stuff with J.B. Ryan, and it goes on to talk about the Gonsfeld, the Dream ESP studies that were conducted at the Maimonides Dream Center in New York under Dr. Montague Ullman and Stanley Krippner. The stuff they did. It talks about the Gonsfeld. I believe I might have said that already. I don't know. Charles Honorton really developed that technique. Well, he didn't really develop it. It had been in use since the 30s, but he really was the one that used it or started using it, particularly for parapsychology. Talks about a lot of specific issues, criticisms leveled against the Gonsfeld and stuff, and things that have been done to correct those initial problems, and ways that people have moved it forward. Etc. Goes into chapter 5, ESP, perception in time, temporal displacement, precognition, retrocognition, that type of thing, that sort of claim. Talks about psychokinesis, talks about specific topics in PK research, and as of now, psychokinesis hasn't been shown to exist, but there is a lot of suggestive evidence that says that or suggests that it might. That's all I'm going to say as far as that goes. There are a lot of interesting cases, interesting phenomena that crop up, which are difficult to explain. Whether or not psychokinesis is the explanation is a different matter. And this book does a very good job of staying objective and showing the competing explanations, the normal explanations and the paranormal ones that people have posited. The eighth chapter is on theories of psi that people have proposed. Ninth chapter is on the survival hypothesis. Talks about things like excenoglossy. It talks about proxy sittings, drop-ins, cross correspondences, reincarnation. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't talk about that here. It talks about Ian Stevens. I saw Stevens' name, and my mind went there. It talks about experimental tests of the survival hypothesis, super psi. Chapter 10 is about poltergeist experiences, and some of the stuff in this chapter is very interesting. Poltergeist claims are really interesting to look into. Let's see. Talks about near-death experiences in chapter 11, out-of-body experiences in the following chapter, apparitional experiences, which are always fun. 14, reincarnation experiences. 15 is belief in the paranormal, and this is something interesting. A lot of people talk about anomalistic psychology, which I actually consider a subcategory of parapsychology, sub-branch. It deals with the beliefs and whatnot that people have in the paranormal and how they reach them. It also deals with experiences and whatnot and the psychology behind those experiences, which I find absolutely fascinating. In fact, that interest right there goes right alongside my interest in parapsychology. Pretty much on par in a lot of ways, and even if all the phenomena prove to not exist, I think that the study of belief in these things is very fascinating. It really is. And also the experiences. So a lot of people are very dismissive, but I think that if you're really going to understand this stuff, if you really want to understand it, you need to understand the psychology behind these experiences. And you also need to be very balanced in how you appraise evidence, critical but not dismissive. Anyways, chapter 16 is matters of relevance. Talks about hoaxers, talks about clients' need for therapy, seekers of reassurance, all types of stuff. Chapter 17 is evaluations of parapsychology as a scientific enterprise. So it actually talks about the specific question of whether or not parapsychology is a real science. A lot of people have debated that, but the fact is, if you are applying the scientific method to these phenomena, you are being scientific, and you are actually conducting science. You're conducting real science. Now, you have to follow that methodology. You can't jump off and entertain wild, crazy theories, and some parapsychologists have done that. Some of them have. That's admitted. But the fact is that there has been a lot of really good research done, and I hope that continues. James Alcock tried to argue that it wasn't a science, but his reasons weren't exactly that great or convincing. A lot of people have argued back. Again, I agree with Chris French. I think it is a science if conducted scientifically, if the research is conducted scientifically, properly. Should be a good word for that. So it's a good book. If anyone is getting interested in parapsychology, wants to know more about it, this is the definitive introduction, I would say. So go for it. Get it, read it, subscribe to my channel. This is the first video I've made in about a month. Hope you guys are having a great day. And comment, like, subscribe.